Welcome to our class. Today we're going to be talking about the legs and the hips. And so I'm going to show you how to do this exercise called Supta Padangusthasana in the best way possible and how to troubleshoot for tightness and pain so that you can improve in the pose and really stretch your hamstrings. So this pose is excellent for back pain. So if you suffer from back pain here and there, it's a really, really great pose to alleviate that pain. So it's important to do this pose every day. And also to improve flexibility in your hamstrings, learn how to work the legs very actively. And in general, it really does improve your yoga practice if that's also one of your reasons for practicing this pose. So it's a basic foundational pose, and we're going to take a look, break it down, and take a look at how to do it. So take a comfortable position, and it's always nice to have a little height underneath your sit bones so that the knees are lower than the hips. So if you need to take a bigger block, go ahead and do that. And we're going to sit here for a moment and start our practice by softening the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And just as a little background on why we do this, so there's many different reasons, but if we take a look at our muscle structure, and this is a very high level overview, so you take a look at the different fibers in the muscle, and a lot of the messages that I get back on some of the videos that I post are, oh my gosh, I'm so tight, I could never do that. If I tried that, I would never leave the ground, and comments like that, which are, I appreciate them. They're very honest, and it is true that sometimes, we have so much tightness in the body that you don't even want to go near the floor. But sometimes if you make that kind of, comment about the body that you have, maybe it keeps you from actually being able to work with it because there's so much already telling you that you can't do it. So in looking at, this is a high level review of muscles, and looking at muscle fibers, they're very intelligent fibers. Some of the fibers in our muscles have these kind of spiral looking muscle fibers that work together with your nervous system. So they're embedded in the muscle. And these special fibers are messengers for your brain. So they give the brain all kinds of information. What's the state of your arm? Is it extended? Is it not extended? Which muscles are working? How much power do you need for this or that? So they give a lot of information. And depending on that information, the brain is then going to allow the muscle to stretch more or to contract more, or it's going to allow you to relax a little bit so that you can, extend that muscle a little bit further. So when we work with this in yoga, we really are training the mind, we're training the brain more than just a physical exercise in your muscles. And so when you take a moment to soften the eyes, the ears, and the throat, you're sending a message into the brain, and you are starting that process of releasing. And the more you practice this, the more it becomes part of your movement, so that you don't have to give yourself permission to release, relax, and then you perform the action, so that it gives that information. You're not in danger, you're not running away from something, you're not going to all of a sudden really make an abrupt movement with the brain, with one of your limbs. And so then you have that space to release, for that signal to go up to the brain and come back down and say, yes, you can actually release this muscle. And then you start going deeper and deeper and working into it. So we teach this using the eyes, the ears, and the throat, and this softness, this release permeates through the rest of the fibers and the muscles in the body. So it's a very important exercise to do, and especially before going deeper in poses or working on shapes that that they have a very big you have a very, very big challenge in doing those poses. And so let's, for a few minutes, close the eyes, sit in a comfortable position, lift the chest, and soften the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And we'll do 2 more breaths like this. And feel the lens of the eyes softening, the throat, the inner ears, the root of the tongue, and eventually the belly, the chest. So lift the chest and start softening this area in the back of the brain. So it's right here, the occipital area of the brain, soften this area. Remove any tension that accumulates there from sitting down, from feeling a tension in your leg. It's possible that that tension is also here in the back of the brain. So release that with every breath. So once we start this way of practicing, then we can go into our poses and always come back to this way of releasing. So when we're starting to work on Supta Padangusthasana, which is a pose we do laying down usually, we want to keep the legs very active. And so let's take a look at what it means to have the legs be active. So I'm going to find my mat here, and I'm going to place a little height, and I'm going to bring the computer along. Okay, so the way I do this is I can first sit down on the mat here in this Dandasana position. So here what happens is if our hamstrings are pretty tight, we end up sitting down and rounding the back, or we have to bend the knees. And that's fine. We don't want to work like this. The back starts hurting. And so the laying down version of this pose is really nice because you bypass that pain in the back because it's supported by the floor. So we're going to do it standing up first so you can feel the difference. If this is happening, grab a height, and you can grab a block like this. If you don't have a block like this, you can fold a blanket and sit on that blanket. So here is the block. I'm going to sit on that height, and that gives me a little bit of space here for the hamstrings so that I can sit a little bit more comfortably, and then my back is not going to hurt. Okay, so making the leg active here means I am hugging the leg with the muscle. So I have the bone, and I want to hug the bone with the muscle. So make a fist around the bone. And when I do this, I notice that in some areas it's easier to do this, and in some areas, especially here, it's almost impossible for me to make that leg compact. So give that a try. So here my legs are relaxed, and here I have tone throughout the whole leg, which means if I picture the bone, as a big, a big solid line in the middle, I hug that muscle around the bone, around the whole circumference of the leg. Make your feet active, so spread the toes, and then flex the feet. Make the ankles narrow, legs long, and hug the bone. And you can see if you're sitting on enough height, you'll see, if you don't need height, it's fine. But if you need a little bit of height, you'll see that you get that lift of the chest. So it energizes the whole body to make the base very firm. So here we descend the femurs down. So we make sure that the head of the femur isn't puffing up. Okay. And we make sure we don't push the knees down. So first, to make the legs active, we squeeze the muscle to the bone, activate the feet, and see what that does. So legs are, soft and just sitting there. And now I activate the legs, meaning I make a fist with all of the muscle in my leg, hugging the bone. Then I give myself a few breaths, and I notice do I have the sensation that the head of the femur is coming up? If it is, I start sitting onto my sit bones here, so putting pressure on the sit bone, sit on the sit bone, and then release the head of the femur down towards the floor. And the last thing we'll look at, am I lifting my kneecaps? Or am I pushing the knees down to the ground? So I don't want to push the knees back and hyperextend the knee or the calf. I want to lift that kneecap up. So bring this closer. And you can see here that I can actually bring the kneecap up, right? So make the leg active, bringing that kneecap up versus just pressing the knee down and hyperextending this area of the knee. So pinch, you can even pinch the top of your kneecap here without pushing the hand up. Do this just with your quad, bring the kneecap up. Okay, sometimes if you haven't done this, it's hard to send that information for the kneecap to lift. So you put your hand here, and it gives your body sort of like a reference point to lift. So both kneecaps up, make the legs active, and there you have it. Okay, so how do we get into this Supta Padangusthasana? So let's go into how to get into the pose and how to work through the tightness and the pain here. So find a mat, and we're going to lay down on the mat. And if you have a wall that you can work with, that would be really great. Okay. All right, so if you like watching videos about muscles and about how it works and how it sends the signals to the brain, it's a really great thing to do, to watch and know the science of it. But then you have to sort of forget about all that for a moment. And when we practice yoga, we're actually, all of that information sometimes can get in the way, because if I tell you the name of the fiber and where it's located in your muscle, it probably won't do you much good. But if I tell you to soften your eyes, your ears, and your throat, I maybe give you a roadmap so that you can access that. And you can access that process of that information coming from the muscle to the brain, and then allowing the brain to send a signal back saying, go ahead, it's safe, you can go deeper and improve your flexibility. So it's nice to have the scientific knowledge, to know that it exists, and mainly it just helps gain trust in your practice, that the intelligence in this whole system of yoga is there. And sometimes we just need a little confirmation, so it's nice to check. And then when you practice with that joy and that love of discovering something, versus just some ends to a mean, just a means to an ends, I guess, to get very flexible. Understand that you're training the mind, you're training the brain, and you're creating something maybe much more holistic than just pinpointing a muscle and targeting that muscle, without the whole system being connected. So let's get into Supta Padangusthasana. I like to use some props because they're great ways to get you to where you don't need to use any props. So if you don't need any props, it's great. If there are some restrictions and you can use a prop to maybe help you learn how to release that, then that's why we use props. Okay, so I have weights. I'll show you with everything that I have, and then you can pick what you think you might benefit from. So if I, let's see if my whole body will be in the view here. Okay, so I'm laying down here. Okay. All right. So here we go. All right, so we're going to start out leaving this left leg straight. And the reason I'm leaving my left leg straight here is because
the descending colon is on the left, and I am assuming that I'm really going to keep that leg active. So I'm not going to have, just a relaxed leg there doing nothing. So it's active and it's massaging or helping that movement of releasing any toxins first. So left side is the side of the descending colon. We leave that left leg straight and active first. And then we bring the right leg to the chest, making sure that I'm not holding here near the knee, that I'm really holding in the middle of the shin. If it's too much, I can also hold here behind on my hamstring. So this is the work of maintaining the leg that's straight, just like we did when we were sitting down. Hug the muscle to the bone, lift the kneecap, spread the toes, and press the heel against the wall. So this leg is active. It never becomes just relaxed and, something that you don't pay attention to. So we're paying attention to the straight leg. Make the leg active, like we've described. When I make the leg active, then I start sending my breath here to my groin, and I start releasing any tension here. And when I release the tension on this side, I notice what happens on the opposite side. So send a few breaths where you soften your eyes, your ears, and your throat. And it's that action where you're keeping the leg active, yet you're softening the groin. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to bring the leg up. Okay, and I'll explain how to do that part. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to grab a belt to start out with. Okay, and I'm going to make my straight leg very active. And I've held this right leg here for about 3 or 4 breaths. And then slowly I start bringing the leg up. Okay, and sometimes that's very tight, so I'll start here. So if you can bring the leg up here, that's great. And if you can't, I'm going to show you a way that you can get there in just a minute. So let's look at different ways to work the leg so that it comes up to here. Okay, and then so that you can hold it without the belt. So as we start bringing the leg up, we maintain the firmness in the bottom leg. And we're going to feel maybe all kinds of restrictions in the back here in the hamstring, the back of the knee, maybe in the calf. So what I want to do is this. Let's get closer. Okay. And let's say I have a tightness right here, right? So this spot right here is very tight and it does not allow me to straighten the knee. So in this pose, I definitely want the knee very straight, meaning I'm lifting that kneecap this way, right? Versus pressing the knee that way. But sometimes it's not possible because there's so much tightness here in the hamstring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my belt. I'm going to say, okay, the pain is here. So this is the tightest part of my hamstring. I'm going to put the belt in front of the pain. Okay, I'm not going to put the belt here. This could cause more pain. I'm going to put the belt in front of the pain. So meaning towards the toes. Okay, so there we are. Put the belt here. And I'm going to hold on to the belt like this. Hold on to the belt here. And I'm going to pull it down. So the pain is here. Okay, I'm going to pull that belt down and try to straighten the knee. Okay, the pain is here, same thing. If I feel pain here, I put the belt just in front and I pull that down and straighten the knee. Okay, let's look at how that works. So straighten the leg. Place the belt above the pain or the tightness and then pull that down. All right, and then straighten the knee slowly and breathe here for a couple breaths. So you want to hold it maybe for 10 seconds, and then you can increase it to 30 seconds, up to maybe 5 minutes. As long as you're able to breathe freely without tightening the eyes, the ears, and the throat, you can stay. All right. So now let's take a look at a supported way to do the same thing. Okay. So I'm gonna see where I can put this. Okay, so here we have a closet door, which I hope that you can see. Okay, so there's a door here. So right there's my wall, and here the door. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come really close to the wall. So this is if I have a lot of tightness. Okay. So I come close to the wall here, and I'm going to lay down. I have my legs bent, and I come close to where I can really place my sit bone against the wall here. Right, if I can put a blanket here if I need to, and I'm gonna come close so that I can put my foot against the wall, and my other leg is bent still. So if I can get myself anywhere around this position, I am in pretty good shape. Slowly, I start straightening this leg. So this is excellent if you have, chronic back pain. This is an excellent stretch because it's very supported. So slowly, I'm going to lower this leg and straighten that leg that's going into the door frame. Keep that leg very straight, make it active, and then soften the groin for a few breaths. And then slowly, I'm going to straighten this leg, and it's supported by the wall here. Let's see if I can do a better view. There we have it. All right, so it's supported by the wall, and you practice here. So every day for a few minutes, you bring the leg to the wall, and then you have to turn around and find a way to do the other leg. To come out, just go ahead and bend the leg, and then bend the inside leg, and you can just roll out and come out. Okay. Okay, and here is another way of doing it. If you have a piece of furniture that you can bring one leg underneath, like a bed or a couch even, something that you can work like this, same thing. You bring one leg under, and then you keep the other leg here. We bend the opposite leg. Okay, keep the straight leg very active. We're now doing the right side. And then you're going to use that piece of furniture to support the leg. And you work here. So keep this leg very active, make it straight, knees coming down, maybe active feet. All right, and there you have it. You can use a nice prop like this to support your leg, work on Supta Padangusthasana, and then the work here would be to soften the belly, soften the eyes, the ears, and the throat. If you're familiar with the head diaphragm, if you're not, go ahead and ask me about it in the comments below. I can make a video for you on it, or I can link some information on that. But pretty much you inhale. When you inhale, you release the brain into its center. When you exhale it, you also release it outwards, not expand, but release it outwards towards the circumference of the brain. Keeping the eyes, ears, root of the tongue soft. Okay, so after you can get through this tightness in the hamstring, after that's we sort of worked on that for a few breaths, then we can start working on softening the groin. So this is part 2 of this class, which I will show you right now. Okay, so come out of here carefully, roll to the right and come up. Okay. So let's take a look at this concept of releasing tension in the groin. Okay. And stretching that way. So I showed you different ways that you can work on the hamstring and, finding the painful spot in the head, the tight spot in the hamstring, using the belt to straighten the knee while we cancel out the painful spot, and slowly, we can stretch the whole hamstring. And now let's take a look at that tension around the head of the femur and how to work with that. So in the next few minutes, what I'm going to show you is how to work with weights to do that. So come down here. And what I want to show you first is we should have no space in between your hamstring and the floor here. So sometimes there is quite a bit of space. And so what I want to do is I put a thin block or a blanket underneath my hamstring, not the knee, just the hamstring. And what I want to do is I want to ground the femur by pressing the hamstring down towards the floor, keeping that leg straight. So there shouldn't be any pain in the knee or anything. So ground the femur and then bring the opposite leg towards the body. And straighten the leg, making sure that you don't lose the contact between the leg and the block or the leg and the floor. So keeping this leg, the bottom leg, active. Okay, if you need a belt here, go ahead and use your belt. So keep that bottom leg active. So once you have this leg active, you start releasing the head of the femur. So release the head of the femur. Once you feel even one fiber releasing here, you can bring this leg back a little more. And this leg will come back not by you pulling and making a huge effort onto the muscle, but it'll be a release on the head of the femur, and the leg will just come down on its own almost. So let's work a little bit on the other side. So if I put a little bit of a height underneath my hamstring, make the bottom leg very active. Bring my opposite leg into my chest here. And I don't, yank it in. I release it back. So take a few breaths. Release tension. Just picture the head of the femur, and you're going to start noticing a grip. The head of the femur is right where the socket here, the ball of the femur come in. Right on this joint here, feel if there's a gripping or a tension or, this tightness that doesn't allow the leg to come back, right? So breathing freely, press the right hamstring into the block, release any tension on the groin, and with that release, you'll see the leg will just come back. Okay, keeping that pressure, keeping the foot against the wall, release the groin, and then just watch, this rotate back freely. So same thing when you have it here. Press the feet against the wall, press the leg down onto the block, maintain that contact, release the head of the femur, and then with that release comes space, softness, and the ability to bring the leg back. And then you feel, okay, here it's pretty tight again. So maybe you have to work this again, where you pull the tightness down, stay there for a moment, and then, without allowing this to happen, so make sure that you keep the hips parallel to the wall versus allowing one hip to come up. This is one thing that starts happening, and it's just a way of cheating so that you can bring the leg down. So keep those hips aligned to the wall and come down from releasing the head of the femur versus just stretching it down. And the last thing that I'll show you is you can keep that block underneath your leg, and you can put some weight on the thigh. So we're not putting weight on the knee, you're putting weight pretty much on your thigh closest to the head of the femur. And then allow your leg to receive the weight. So sometimes you start pushing the weight up because it's heavy and it's strange. So allow the leg to receive the weight. You can just remove this. So here's just the weight on top of my thigh, and I start receiving the weight. So take a few breaths here where you soften the eyes, the ears, the throat, and you receive the weight. You can have, you can put a mat or a blanket here and then have somebody put their weight, with their hands, like press their weight down, turning the leg in a little bit, making sure that when you add the weight, that it's not rotating the leg out, it's rotating the leg in. Okay, and then by releasing, so receive the weight, bring the head of the femur down on the leg that's straight on the floor. And then by releasing any tension in the groin, work here with the leg bent. And it just releases the leg back. As you're able to, go ahead and bring the leg up, straighten the knees, and just breathe. So take a breath, receive the weight, release any grip that you can, even if it's one fiber on the head of the femur, and use that to bring the leg back maybe 1/4 of an inch. And then breathe, soften the eyes, ears, and throat, lift the chest, receive the weight, soften the head of the femur a little more, and the belly, and then bring the leg back another 1/4 of an inch. Keeping that knee straight, don't bend the knees here. If you're bending the knee, just work for a few more weeks on really bringing that tightness down. And you can use this to soften the head of the femur and come back. So that's the work. Learning how to receive the weight, soften eyes, ears, tongue, throat, belly, and then bringing the leg back by reducing the grip in this groin area instead of just pulling it back and overstretching the muscle. Okay. All right, I hope that you enjoyed this class and that it gives you some ideas on how to work in Supta Padangusthasana. And hopefully it can alleviate some back pain and start really getting to work on the hamstrings and on the legs. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your comments. And if you have any requests, let me know. And see you next week. Thank you.